So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ma'am Ani. Good morning, Mr. Adib, and good morning to all my classmates. My name is Bastian, and I'll be the MC to the welcome sharing session about public speaking and global working experience. Okay, before we start, I want to remind you guys that R&R for today, if you guys have a good connection, we really hope you guys to open the camera and mute during the session. But before we start, I would like to invite Ma'am Ani to introduce our speaker today. Ma'am Ani, time is yours.
Oh my goodness. Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. I know that we are still in the middle of global pandemic, right? Believe it or not, ini pertama kali ketemu ya after 20 something years ya, Adib. Yeah, oh my gosh. 20 something years. Time flies. The happiest moment for a teacher is to see his or her students successful. I don't know. It seems that Adib ages backwards. That's why when I saw you a couple of days ago on Instagram, and so instantly I was like, I know this guy, I know this kid. It was back in 2001, 2002, yeah, around that time. I worked at the international program in UII in Yogyakarta. So it's a big private university too, and it has a very good program. And there are a lot of surprises when we talk about Kak Adib. Let me share. So you can see it, right? Kak Adib has over 12 years experience in working with the UN, the United Nations, yeah? Wow. Since 2008 as a diplomat. His undergrad was not even related to international relations. So this is something that we can learn today. So we can go anywhere we would like to go. Yeah, as long as you have the faith to do that. So this is very important. And then he went to Australia, to Monash University, to pursue his master's degree, diplomacy and trade. Right now he is in New York, and also this is very interesting that he also has an experience of teaching and in communication study program Mercu Buana University. So what we are going to share with him today is going to be related to what we do in class, right? So Adib, these are the students, in my public speaking class, this semester. Harapan kita kan mereka juga bisa thinking about the global working trajectories for their future professional experience later. Nah, ini karena lama banget nggak ketemu ya, tapi dua pertanyaan dulu. Nanti sisa waktunya biar panjang and you guys can ask as many questions as possible. So my first question is, you are taking the road less taken gitu ya. Karena kan kalau the road less taken itu di situ it's not crowded. So it seems that you enjoy what you're doing at the moment. Tapi sepertinya berliku-liku gitu ya, long and winding road. So your undergrad was from the management program. Terus diplomacy and trade, if I'm not wrong, for your masters. Terus sekarang kerja sebagai diplomat gitu ya. So could you tell us a brief story, about that, related to that? Jadi dari lulus S1 gitu, terus kenapa kepikiran, suddenly, oh my gosh, I want to be a diplomat. Apakah itu seperti itu, or you have a different story related to that? Silakan.
Thank you, Miss Ani. It's always been a privilege to share and to eventually meet you again after decades, I might say. I mean, it's been a while, but fate has brought us back. I think that's a wonderful thing about social media. And I think, as you know, that students that you have right now is very lucky. I think Miss Ani also taught us very lots of important and valuable lessons way back in Universitas Islam Indonesia. And now President University is a very experienced lecturer. And I think the experience you have right now is very profound, and I think you should ensure that you cherished it. And yes, I was taught by Miss Ani in international program in Universitas Islam Indonesia. It was a very early stage of the development of the international program in UII at that time. And there were so many pilot, classes and projects over there. And one thing that I was lucky enough to experience is that there are so many progressive students. Islam Indonesia has a very particular traditions and Islamic teachings. The international program didn't eliminate that, but bring that in a more progressive way, and I think it driven students to be the best versions of themselves. I think I don't want to promote we are in a different university right now, but I think it is very important to take lessons from what happening back in the day when I was in the university. And I think management, studying of a business as I think will not confine us to be entrepreneur or business practitioners. I think I have a personal opinion that if you are a university education or tertiary education doesn't necessarily makes you a practitioners, but it actually develop your mindset to be a person that ready to embrace any types of settings of working environment. It's increase your aptitude, and I think it's very lucky that all of us are enjoying a tertiary education as university. And President University is a very reputable university. We have lots of interns of President University students in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They've proven very, they have a good, they're very perceptive, and they have the ability to work very well. I think this it owes to the curriculums, and it's also the quality of the universities itself. So I studied business management. It's at the beginning, it seems like it's very far from the path that I'm taking right now, but contemplating from that experience and now what I'm doing right now, it's actually not really far astray from what I have learned. So I think every types of business, every types of industry, including foreign relations, we cannot escape ourselves from industry, that putting ourselves as an industry, because international relations is also about business. I mean, the business that we have right now is, of course, the commodity is different. What we have right now, it's our assets is probably intangible. It's a good in diplomacy, but these outcomes actually can be obtained through the perspective of business, because that's what we have right now. Even the way United Nations is being managed right now, it's very much similar with the way the corporate actually manage the business. So the experience that I had back in the day, it's not necessarily useless, it's not necessarily becoming irrelevant, but it's not. It's actually becoming very relevant. So at that time, I was joining English Debate Society in Universitas Islam Indonesia. That was when I'm being introduced to the way of the art of negotiations and debating. Little that I know that actually the debating skills is actually, it's not skills to debate, but it's actually skills to reason. So the logic that is becoming the parameters of how we perceive so many issues. I think the critical thinking parts becoming part of the debaters has been playing a very important role, contributes a lot on how I aspire to my career. I mean, the way I choose career that I want to have in the future. I didn't know about diplomatic professions at that time. But what I do know at that time is that I want to be part of I want to have a profession which will relies on my ability to reason with people. I mean, to talk about issues, political, economics, comprehending so many various issues that actually have meanings of the global change. I don't know. I didn't know that it would be a diplomatic career. And at that time, I like many other business management graduates, I started my career in a bank. At that time, there's an oil company named Medco. They have a subsidiary. It's a very small bank at that time. It's very near my house, and I applied for it, and it's very fortunate that I've been accepted. But there's a very important parts of very important moment at that time is that I was being hired as a international banker. And what I saw from the international banking system is that it highly influenced by political dynamics around the globe. So the currency fluctuations, the values of assets that being traded all over the globe is actually highly affected by fundamental conditions that revolves around it, including the politics and economy. So I learned a lot and I enjoyed myself in there. And at that time, my friend asked me to told me that, oh, I want to apply to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There's an opening now. I was asking permission to my boss, then I applied it. And at that time, I just knew that apparently this is the type of professions that I wanted. And my experience in bank apparently gave a little bit of, differentiations, distinctions way of, because most of the international relations students have a very typical way of thinking, theoretical, constructive, international relation theory, the way they extract information from the newspaper and everything, then they displayed it like political analysts. So the way they have a very typical points of view. But because I came from a business perspective, I came from the banking perspective, I came to how that I can explain on how global dynamics can actually influence our life and daily basis. It intrigues them to hire me at that time, and fortunately, alhamdulillah, I was being hired and as I was being accepted in a batch of diplomatic newly recruited. So we call it PDK, pejabat diplomat konsuler at that time. It's actually this batch, we have the applications was 37,000 applications at that time. And the one that actually eventually become diplomats is 98. So out of those 98, of course, it's not all of them are brilliant and full of talent, but probably there's a luck over there as well. But I somehow managed to get in that very eclectic batch. But the experience is starting from there. I think the education itself, I have like a crash course, 7 months, what we call a diplomatic academy, Sekdilu, Sekolah Dinas Luar Negeri, or the very basic entry level of a diplomatic academy. And then it actually gives us very practical knowledge about diplomacy. So it's actually putting under scrutiny everything, it extract at the practical level of international relations that you learn at school, but you put it in a more practical way that you will do in your job on a daily basis. So that expedites my learning in international relations. It gives me a strong fundamentals on international relations. And after that, I started my job as in a research and development, starting the very first, not in international corporations, kerjasama technical corporations. It intrigues me at that time that actually Indonesia donates a lot of money, giving a lot of training to other countries to get soft power diplomacy, a very new terminology for me that I learned. I'm lucky enough. I was lucky enough to learn it in a very early stage. And after that, I'm being transmitted to the research and development divisions. And I learned a lot about foreign relations in a more comprehensive way. And I got my scholarship to the Monash University at that time in Australia. And I studied in Australia for 2 years. And after that, I went back to the research and development. And I'm immediately being deployed to South Africa. When to Africa, I have a unique dispositions and knowledge about region in Africa. But at that time, I was being directed to the multilateral affairs, nations related. So I'm coming back forth to negotiate on behalf of Indonesia, but I'm still being placed on my assignment still in Jakarta, but we went back forth to negotiate a couple of humanitarian issues in United Nations, both in Geneva and New York. And after that, there's an opening in Indonesia Permanent Missions. Indonesia Permanent Missions it's like an embassy, but the difference is that embassy, we deal with Indonesian citizen, we give services to public services Indonesian overseas, but the place where I work is actually only deal with the negotiations in United Nations. So our counterparts, peers, and stakeholders, mainly diplomats from other countries, as also representing their countries in the United Nations. So all the negotiations that we does on a daily basis in United Nations issues. And now I'm dealing with, fortunately, in the 5th committee. So in General Assembly United Nations, we have 6 committees. So diplomats are assigned in those committees. I'm assigned in 5th committee. 5th committee is on planning, budget, and also management part of the United Nations. So it actually fits me well with my bachelor educations. So that's where I found out that I contemplate that, well, this is not really far astray from what I've learned initially. So that's what I've experienced so far, Miss Annie. Hopes it's not too boring. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Kak Adib. It's a wonderful journey that you have. Rather complicated. So that's why, you guys, if you have questions, feel free. Yeah. It's a beautiful journey. And I do remember one thing, that you were active in the debate club, right? Debate society. And I think it's a good club for everyone to, especially like Adib said, it's about critical thinking, to train your critical thinking. It's not to debate, but to reason, to train your critical thinking, and a lot to learn over there in that particular club. So related to that, oh, thank you for the story. I'm going to, if I can write a book, based on your story, because it's beautiful. It's really beautiful and powerful, Adib. So thank you for sharing. Related to that, I can see that you are very flexible. So whenever you see an opportunity, you just catch it, and you do what you think is the best, right? So
Okay.
I can see it where you are now. at the moment, you are in New York and you are working in the United Nations. So currently I am teaching the public speaking classes. So maybe related to that, I would say that public speaking skill is cannot be separated from, you know, say work as a diplomat, or if you want to work, especially want to work abroad, or you want to work with people from different backgrounds, right? Different nationalities, because you know that's the most important skill that you need to possess in order to be able to negotiate with them, to accommodate them, and to make sure that you also keep the cross-cultural understanding, prioritize that because that's very important. So how do you view the public speaking skill, especially related to what you are doing right now? Or maybe if I see my students, currently my students in my classes, maybe some of them, even though I know not all of them, would like to work overseas because they love Indonesia so much. Well, I know you do love Indonesia so much. That's why you work with the UN. But not all of them are going to work overseas, but I'm pretty sure, you know, with the global working trajectories, with the world currently, especially in Jawa Beka area, we can say that our area right here in Cikarang is a melting pot in a way, because there are people from all over the world basically coming to Jawa Beka because it's an international industrial area. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bastian. I think it's an international industrial area, right? So people from all over the world work here. So that's why we need to be able to communicate, you know, accommodate them when they're here. So your view about, you know, being able to communicate, especially in English as a global language and, you know, related to public speaking skill, what do you think, you know, the importance of this particular skill to enhance your opportunity to for your future professional experience?
Thank you, Miss Annie. I think that's a very good questions. I mean, that's a very relevant point that you've raised. I think let's not talk about me as a diplomat, because in my profession, public speaking is life. I mean, that's exactly our traits, right? But based on my experience, actually, before I
You need to
become
write it down. Sorry, you need to write it down. Public speaking is life. 2021.
yeah, I mean, in my case is life, because it's our trade. I mean, as a diplomat, of course, you can't separate yourself from the skill. If you have an ability to navigate your art of speaking, I mean, the way you talk, everybody, I mean, we talk about 198 countries, so you sort of have to be able um to to make yourself relevant to them, and we have to learn on how they perceive what is actually a good public speaking or not. I mean, Japanese, Koreans, probably, and Americans perceive a very different way of what entails as a good public speaking. But let's not go there yet. Like, even before I'm in this profession, where public speaking is straight. I think even before that, public speaking, or the ability to communicate well is probably the most important set of skill that you will need to thrive. That's my personal opinion, because first of all, everything that you have inside you, like the ability and skill, let's say you're a computer science, or probably you're a great cook. Yeah, at some point you will be asked to display your skill in a very small amount of time. Yeah, and you don't have your tools around you, right? So your only ability is to explain it. So this ability to explain, to pursue people, to convince them that you are good enough, it saves your life and career in many ways. Sometimes business opportunity or working opportunity, it's happening in a very small window of time, right? Sometimes you meet someone at the airport, you talk to them, and that very split second, people can actually judge you that you are a very capable person, that you are a person that people can collaborate with, can work together with. So, and this, the ability to invest impressions, to incept impressions on that, it's also a very important part of in public speaking, a very important part of speaking art, you know. Now in my life as a diplomat, of course, public speaking is very important, because intentions is only intended for one thing. It's to gain as much as support from your fellow diplomats that represents country. If you have a certain deliberations or certain objective, for instance, in our case, Indonesia wants to produce a certain resolution. Resolutions is a document where people should agree on. If you want, like an idea, I have this idea, so who will agree with me? And that agreement, it's put it in with an reflected in one document. They call it resolutions. That's the documents that actually being being traded within the United Nations. Achievements of a diplomat, achievements of a nation, sometimes reflected on the resolutions that they can manage to produce and agreed by majority of the countries. So in that case, you have to sell it. You have to convince that this resolution, for instance, in Indonesia recently, we issue resolutions about the importance of protections to seafarer. Means people that works on a ship, they have to be protected. Why? Because there should be an international regulations that protect them. That doesn't really necessarily concerns everyone, right? Like, not all countries have their majority of people working in a ship, or working as a seaman, working as a fisherman. But Indonesia have to convince everyone that this resolution, these ideas to protect fishermen is actually important for everyone in the world, 198 countries. So apply strategy, of course. We have to make a very intimate or very personal approach to every diplomat that we have garnered. We have maintained the network that we have to maintain them, even though we don't have any issue or intentions or interests. We have to maintain the network that we have. That requires a public speaking skills, that requires speaking skills. And also, when we present that we have always United Nations will have we have a big in General Assembly. You will be given 3 minutes to present your language in your resolutions, and then everyone will reply it rapidly, something like that, from member states. You need to have a very strong case to do that, and that requires a foolproof public speaking skills. That entails every values that subscribes by United Nations, that subscribes every global values that have been subscribed by global citizens today. So that is also very important. And in informals, when we actually negotiate every paragraph and language that we submit to the United Nations, Indonesia as the initiator of the resolutions needs to tackle every questions that requires a public speaking. Like, for instance, in our diplomatic life, we have the way of answering questions without answering it. So the one of traits that we have. And then we also have the technique to evade very important questions, for instance. So evade questions that we want to avoid, but still giving satisfactory stances. So that's that sort of techniques and also arts and ability that we have to learn it along the way. And I think in my opinion, it's not only confined and limited only in the diplomatic world on diplomacy. I think in every parts and walks of life that you have, your teacher of the if you're teacher of kids and you're having life as an educators, I think the art of simplifying in very difficult concepts to be well understood by your pupils, by your students, it's a very, very vital and important set of skill. And of course, in many other parts of profession that requires public speaking, I think the way you explain it in order to be well understood, and then also simple and easy, but it's something that you can be understood, comprehended by many people. I think that's a very important skill that you need to have in public speaking thing. I hope that answers.
There are so many questions, guys. Tons of not questions. So many, a lot of lessons, you know, that we can learn today from Adib, especially, and from each other. At least there are 3 things that I highlight from your answer, Adib. So the first one is, of course, when you said public speaking is life, we need it every single day, right? And also the second one, first impression is very, very important. Even, you know, in a split second, somebody can tell that, you know, you are really knowledgeable and resourceful just because, you know, the way you talk about something. And the next one, I forgot. What is the next one? I was about to say something, but I forgot the next one, the last one. But anyway, I'm going to go back later. So we still have like probably around 30 minutes. So you're not sleepy yet, right, Adib? Okay. Because you told me you love sharing with anak-anak muda, right? With mahasiswa. So we're going to rob you. No, I'm kidding. We're going to ask questions, but I'm going to give the floor back to Bastian. Over to you, Bastian.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Adib.
Thank you, Mr. Ani, Mim Ani. Thank you, Kak Adib.
Oh, hang on. I just remember. See, I'm too old. I have a problem remembering stuff. So the last one is answering questions without really answering it. So what does it mean? I don't even know about it. So we are curious. What is that? So yeah, that's the thing that you know, we need explanation probably in another time, if not today. So hopefully in the future we're going to have another sharing session, right, Adib?
We're very happy to have more sessions.
Okay, so sorry, Bastian. Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay. So I want to remind for all the participants, if you want to ask to Kak Adib, you guys can check the Zoom box. That's how you can ask him. But before we jump to question and answer, I also have a question for Kak Adib. That is, can you give us some tips how to improve our public speaking, since we know that all of us have anxiety issues?
Probably that's a very good question. I mean, to start to talk sometimes is very difficult because you don't know what to say, right? Especially when you're meeting a new person, or probably you're in front of publics. It's very important to prepare a checklist, so you can ways to start a conversation, right? You have like there are so many like billions of topics that you can take, but actually there are very basic way to structure your speech, or to structure your speaking. I mean, the way you display, or the way you deliver a certain opinion. The first one is, of course, you have to have the arguments. And then, for instance, like this, if you are talking about, let's say, something that is very hype right now, for instance, the importance of social media, for instance. And then the first one that you have to checklist, you have an argument, you have a statement, you have a assertion that you say that I think social media is very important. That's checklist number one. It means you have a stances, right? And then secondly, you have the reason to back up your stances. So why you think that social media is very important? It's reasoning. So meaning that I think social media is very important. Why? Because because social media is actually connects people from your past, from your and also connects people that potentially can be your future. That's your reasoning. And then the third part is should be evidence. So assertions, reasonings, evidence. Now, and then the evidence is that's why is it important? Because it connects people. The proof is that, yeah, because as you see, that's probably, if you see the report in social media, almost 55% of chances, if you using the social media, then you might be able to expand your network from both of your historical friendship or someone that you just met, but it's very potential as your friends. That's a 50% chance. That should be the evidence first. And then sometimes you have to link. That's why link back all of these arguments back to your assertions. Like, so that's why I think based on that evidence, based on that reasons, social media is very important. Of course, this is a very basic and very, rigid structure, but it kind of helps you if you talk to someone new, especially when you don't know the culture that they have. Sometimes people have a very different way culture. Sometimes people like jokes, sometimes they don't. But most of the people likes to listen to the new facts. So when you talk about facts, did you know that they want to know your opinion? When your opinion is just complete, you have evidence, you have reasons, then usually they will see you as a very good idea presenter. I think that leaves a very good impression. I think that's probably one thing that you can learn as a basic. And then aside from that, after that, you can probably learn other nonverbal communication skills for every particular cultures that you might encounter and everything. I think that's.
So it's basically like a debate stuff when you're going to do your argument, you use RL, right? Okay.
Yeah, true.
I
Yes,
got it.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kak. And now we're going to the question from Chandra. It's quite interesting when you say that you can answer without answering, and it also how to avoid some serious question without actually avoid it and still answer that question. Can you spill out some techniques or some tips how to do that? Thank you.
The first thing that you should do, sometimes as a diplomat, sometimes we are ordered not to entertain certain questions, right? One technique that we usually use is that to use the analogy. First of all, you have to complement that question because that's actually already 50% of the job. For instance, like that's actually very interesting point. And it's actually, there are so many facts that can be revealed, but let's put it, that's actually the way you disperse their, let's put it this way. Every country in the world, like your country, America, for instance, there are so many issues that happens at hands right now, right? And the politics of Indonesia, our main traits of the politics is actually to always cater the interests of all people in Indonesia without exception. So there are law and regulations that will address that issue. We have a very solid law and regulations in Indonesia. Every violator of the law will be treated the same in front of the public. And I think it doesn't matter whether that's the problem. So basically, we also we also think that freedoms of speech is very important. And I think Indonesia appreciates democracy. It doesn't answer the questions at all, but actually spells out values that we have about the laws and everything. But somehow it relates, but it's not. So, and they will agree with you. Yes, democracy is important. Equality before the law is important. Countries should cater their the interests of people without exceptions. But you don't answer the questions. So, but that's it. And then when they ask, well, what about the, yeah, that's why democracy is very important. And that's why knowing the format of the meetings itself is very important. Can someone actually throw another jab at you or not? In the UN, you have to take a look at that format. So every factors you need to calculate. So something like that. There are so many questions that will be thrown at us. We have to answer it by bragging. Indonesia is a very good country, blah, 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 blah. But it's actually to answer the question. Yeah, something like that. That's, or the second technique, usually that is a very interesting point. We have so many reports on how Indonesia address this problem. You are welcome to contact me and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, something like that. So it's something that it seems like you are very paying attention to that question and you want to follow up it, but you're not. So that sort of there are many techniques that we use. That's very common, also used by many other politicians or diplomats.
Okay, I hope that will answer the Chandra questions. I see there's a lot of interesting question here. So, oh my God. Okay, let me choose one. This is interesting for me. Wait, have you ever felt tired of speaking in front of public? And if you so, what makes you ever feel tired? And is it because the audience doesn't appreciate you or something? That's the question from Natasha.
Yeah, that's it happens a lot. I mean, like everyone, even the most proficient, even the most highest caliber of diplomat or public speakers, they always second guess themselves whether they were effective speakers or not, especially in the new environment. So what makes you tired is that pressure, right? I mean, you have to go to new places, you have to entertain people, they don't know you, and you're not comfortable with the crowd. You don't know whether they're going to react the same as you usually get from other populations or demography that you are familiar with. And it's tiring too sometimes because sometimes the audience also doesn't really, they have a certain perception. In diplomatic world, they know regardless how much you explain them, they're not really interested. They just want to attack you, for instance. That's also one of the reasons as to why it's very tiring to speak in front of public, but you have to do it because that's your job, or you are put on the corner, you're put on the spotlight. So you have to retaliate, for instance, or you have to answer, you have to talk, and you have to entertain. That's very tiring. But actually, the way to tackle that is that your willingness to improve. If you cannot tame a certain demography or probably people that not appreciating you the way you talk, you have to learn how to improve yourself. That's actually very important. So because in my profession as a diplomat, if you're not being appreciated on the way you on ideas that you've delivered, there's might be something wrong, or there's something that you don't know. So those both factors is very interesting to find out what's wrong and what are the things that I don't know about this guy? For instance, apparently there is other context that I don't know, the cultural context. Don't know. It appears that they don't like someone that talks enthusiastic. I mean, they don't really like someone that riled up when they're talking. Well, that's my signature at that time. So, oh, that I don't know that. I mean, so next time I approach him, for instance, I'll do different way. I'll understand what happened, and then I will approach him in a very different way. So yeah, but trial and error is very important as well to improve your ability to speak or public speaking. It's getting tired all the time, but we have to do it, because if you put it as a challenge, as a challenge, as an enigma, I think that's very good.
Maybe a little comment on that. Well, talking is tiring, but especially thinking is tiring. Yeah. So I do agree with Adib, especially in learning about yourself, right? So we can reflect on what we do, what we have said to those people, especially when it is related to culture. I told my students over and over and over again that when we talk about culture, we can view an iceberg, right? To see on the surface is going to be little things that you can actually feel and see and taste, but underneath there's like big things that you need to learn actually. So it's really complicated, and it's really important. Like your story with the Mongolian speaker is very, very interesting, especially Adib. So thank you for sharing. That's really interesting. Yeah, even like a small thing when you try to understand jokes. Yeah, so people define jokes very differently, for example. So something that is considered as funny in our society, it is considered rude. That's at least my first experience in living with Americans. So what I considered as funny at that time, they consider it as rude, and the other way around. So the concept of funny is very different. So maybe since it is almost 11, so I believe that in New York it's almost midnight, probably, right, Adib? Almost midnight. Okay, so probably we still have a room for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Bastian?
Okay, so we're going to the next questions. Are we, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from Angel and Arda. How to deal with passive speaker and how to build a sense of interest from our audience.
So I think preparations loves victory. That's a very good. I think I found that very true. So if it's not a diplomatic setting and you are invited to speak in front of a lot of people, in front of a lot of people, like right now, when I asked Miss Annie about who will be the audience, students. So at least I know that the demography that I have right now in front of me right now is a student. Students will be listening to me. So I have a very great descriptions of how students perceive, because I was a student as well. And then and since that time I started to
Looks like Adib has a problem with his connection, maybe.
sorry, sometimes my laptop is
No problem at all. Because yeah, it's far away, and connection sometimes it's really bad.
Yeah.
In here too. Yeah, the connection is really bad.
The first things to do is of course to prepare. If you're prepared, you are mentally prepared, right? So if you are prepared, your preparations will not betray you. So you do your homework about at least the demography, okay, and then you prepare yourself. it's not embarrassing actually to take pointers notes in when you're talking. It's not embarrassing. It better safe than you have a very structured way of talking. It's very safe. In the beginning, your career as a public speaker, for instance. Passive speaker, you can't avoid it. I mean, even though you are the most interesting person in the room, for instance, like probably, who do you recall the most interesting speakers? For instance, like Panji Pragiwaksono, for instance, very interesting. The materials are good, he's funny and everything. But still, there are people that passive. They don't want to address something like that. But so there are many types of audience or your counterparts. So they can not react, not because you're bad, probably they're just not in the mood. So there are so many incidents like that. But actually, to make yourself interesting, of course, the first thing that you have to do is that you have to be very confident. When you are confident, your tone, right? Your nonverbal communication tells that this person really think himself interesting. That's very important. Like, if you're convinced that everything you say is actually have values and impact, then people will do too. So like what I'm saying right now, what I'm talking to you right now, it's my personal experience and profession. Logically, who would interesting in your life, for instance, who would interested in your life? But you have to make it as if you yourself are very interested in what you're saying. So that's probably the first rules that you need to have, because people can tell if you are second guessing yourself in front of the public, people can instantly tell that you're not sure. In the diplomatic world is very dangerous. Why? Because it means your arguments might not be inaccurate, your arguments might be weak, or you might be lying. So something that can be easily addressed. So you have to be very confident, not overconfident, but you're sure of yourself that you have things, you will not get things out of hand. Doesn't have enough material to answer, it doesn't matter, right? If you can convince them that what you're saying, even the most very basic, is actually answering your affirm that actually answering their questions, then it is answering the questions. No one can rule you what to answer to a question, right? It's your privilege. So that you have to be really sure that you are you have things within your grip. I think that's very important.
Hope it's going to answer your question, guys. And next is from Vina and Heskia. We know that having a good public speaking skill is not enough. According to you, how to be an irreplaceable person and how to handle question that you don't understand? Thank you.
So first of all, people that made up answers is the least favorite person, because you will know that people that made up answers is definitely someone that doesn't know the answer, right? So sometimes being honest that you don't know the question, it's okay. But the way you package that you don't know the answer of the question is sometimes even more important than the answers itself, right? For instance, like this, someone asking me about, Adib, do you know about the strangest molecules, the newest molecules that are found by CERN recently? What do you think about that? I think it's very also interesting to know that even though I don't know the answer of that right now, but it definitely motivates me to find on the internet what take you know the answer, but respect, because and they will happy. You will find out the answer. So that's one of the technique that probably you can use, like in for instance, are you aware of situations in Myanmar, for instance. You know the facts that probably people are being killed there? And then I have to have a lot of interest in Myanmar democracy, but thank you very much for telling me the facts that there's a prediction happen over there. I will definitely take a look on that, and probably if you're interested, we can talk about it. I can probably we can have a bilateral conversations on that. I need to learn more. Thank you very much for that. But we'll definitely get that straight, and we will definitely discuss about. We'll address that in a very near future, something like that. So you don't know about it, it's fine, but being gentleman about it and you know, package it very well, I think that's also impressive for and acceptable for some of the audience.
Okay, I think that's all. Okay, one more last
Maybe
question.
one more, Bastian.
Okay.
So we're gonna stop at not one. Gosh, sorry, 11:15.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay. So one more last question.
Okay. It is from Restina Dia Aula. So what do you do if the audience doesn't listen and focus on your material, and how to make them again focus to your material? Thank you.
Sorry, the question was if your listener doesn't really paying attention to your material, something like that. Okay.
Yes.
There are two ways to see this problem. First of all, probably your material is not interesting enough. Sometimes very bulk material, you think yourself as very smart. This is facts that I have, and I think this is very interesting. So I think you might have to reflect yourself whether your material is interesting or not interesting, or probably you inaccurately targeting your audience. You're probably delivering wrong materials to wrong audience. That might be, but if that's happened anyway, you are in front of the public. There's a few techniques that you can use if you're in a public speaking, right? First of all, address that person in a very polite way. I see, take an example of that person. For instance, like this. They're not paying attention to you about the importance of public speaking. Then you said that, and you probably, sir, I don't know whether you really understand about public speaking, but do you know that wearing black, it's actually bolster your confidence when you talk to other people. Wearing blacks is actually already 50% success of public speaking. And then he will like, oh, okay. So something like that. So it's like addressing a very random facts that probably not really very important, but it relates to that. Take back that person to your materials. It's very important. So for instance, I'm just stating a very it's not necessarily accurate what I said, but I think, do you know that wearing black tie is recommended if you want to if you speak in public, because black reflects dignity and confidence. And then he was, oh, okay, something. Address that person. That's probably one of the, especially it's very intriguing when someone that's actually in front of you, they didn't listen. So sometimes you have to call them, but not to humiliate them, but to compliment them on how they actually already engage with us, with that they are conscious, with that they realize. You like compliment them. Okay, you wearing black, you know your stuff. You know that if wearing blacks is very important to go to occasions to show dignity and pride, even though that's not necessarily true, but that will take back people. Okay. And then secondly, it depends on the demography, right? Some people will refuse jokes. Jokes is a very good trade if you know how to deliver it, right? For instance, if jokes is always works when you know how to deliver it. Jokes is very good. It's very useful. It's very effective if you know how to deliver it. So if you can, if you feel you're funny enough, if you feel you have a good confidence to deliver jokes, that's one way to break the ice. That's one way to make people interested in what you're saying, for instance, or picking something random that you think will have the majority attentions. For instance, wow, I see everyone here. You guys want to watch a K-pop concert or what? Something like that. So, well, K-pop, that's a keyword that everyone's are now trending. So, something like that. And then you probably can mention like Korean actor. That guy over there looks like something like. So that's one of the probably very basic way to make people. The bottom line is that you have to create engagement. Have materials in your hand that can engage, can relate, you cannot bridge it, then you have to make it. You have to make pop culture. That's why public speakers needs to be well versed in in using pop culture's reference. It's very important, especially when the audience are young people, youth, something like that.
Okay, thank you so much, Kak Adib, for the question and answer session. I'm so sorry, my internet is not stable. But before we jump to photo session, I would like to remind you guys that we already made a certificate for participant. And also, please fulfill the survey in the chat box. You guys can check it in the chat box column. Okay, now we're going to do a photo session with Kak Adib. And wait, Afif, are you ready, Afif?
Okay, come on guys, turn on your camera. We are going to have a photo session.
Okay, guys, please open your camera because we're going to do a photo session.
Okay, there are 2 pages, so I will take the first page. 1, 2, 3. The second page. 1, 2, 3. Again, for first page 1, 2, 3. The second page 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Afif. Well, again, thank you so much for Kak Adib. We hope the sharing session will help us for the future career, and especially in this subject. And also, thank you for all participants today. I'm Bastian, and see you in the next meeting. I give it back to Ma'am Annie. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Kak Adib.
Oh
Thank
my
you, everyone.
goodness. Guys, today we have a 1 semester worth of lesson from the other side of the universe, yeah, from New York. So I guess we can say that it is a blessing in disguise of COVID-19 global pandemic because, you know, we are able to meet online, right? So this is wonderful. Hopefully in the future, we're going to have a similar event. Yeah, even though this event is without preparation, but you know, I really love it. And thank you again, especially for Adib, for sharing the insightful explanations, not only about public speaking, but more than that, it's about life. Like you said, public speaking is life, right? So since we are in a community of practice, so we are learning from each other. So thank you again. Hopefully everything is great in the US because I keep on getting, you know, notification that especially with the Asian communities over there currently, but hopefully everything is going to get better everywhere in the world. Yeah. So hopefully we can see you again in the future, Adib. If you have a talk at PU, so of course we're going to be more than happy to kidnap you. Ya.
Iya, terima kasih Miss Ani, thank
Oh,
you.
terima kasih.
Terima
Oh
kasih
my
banyak teman-teman
goodness.
yang udah mau ngedengerin saya ngomong panjang
Terima
lebar.
kasih. That's really valuable, and
Iya,
your experience. We learn from you a lot, especially my students. The generation Z. Ya, kalau Adib kan masih, Adib itu generation Z juga ya?
borderline
millennial?
millennial, borderline.
Borderline between millennial and
And old.
generation Z. You're not old. Ya, nggak ada bedanya loh. You don't look different at all.
Iya.
Jadi
Terima kasih
kayak
Miss Ani
20
dan
20 years
teman-teman
ago.
sudah mengundang saya untuk sharing. Saya senang sekali bisa sharing sama teman-teman. Sekalian juga nanti kami sebetulnya saya sama ada kolik saya juga yang kerja di United Nations di kita bikin platform namanya rostrumdiplomacy.id. Itu aim-nya memang educational platform untuk memberikan informasi mengenai multilateral diplomacy, tapi cara yang lebih dengan simpler way, dengan lebih mudah gitu ya. Kami pengennya supaya teman-teman bisa mengenai isu-isu atau bagaimana diplomasi di multilateral dilakukan, starting from very basic. Kita juga mau ada podcast yang mudah-mudahan reach bisa membuat teman-teman bisa lebih ngerti. Kita namanya rostrumdiplomacy.id. Feel free to follow. Kita akan ada series of podcast. Terima kasih banyak. Mudah-mudahan teman-teman makin tertarik ya sama dunia diplomasi multilateral dan juga public speaking. This is very very important. I think this is very essential. Dan mereka banyak juga teman-teman yang suka tanya, Mas gimana sih? Saya kepingin kerja saya Mas itu sebenarnya gampang. Teman-teman tinggal apply ke perusahaan ke organisasi yang memang bergerak di bidang ini, seperti di Kementerian Luar Negeri, seperti di kementerian lain yang punya international engagement, and voila, you'll be there. Tapi memang persiapan memang harus banyak dilakukan, dan we'll be very happy to share. Kira-kira kalaupun ada yang bisa berguna yang bisa kita share, we'll be very happy. Please contact us ke rostrumdiplomacy.id, karena teman saya, kolik saya ini namanya Ahmad Al-Maududi Amri. Dia itu pemegang rekor muri doktor hukum internasional termuda di Indonesia dari Australia, yang dari lulusan Australia. Dia itu negotiator delimitasi maritim di Indonesia, UNCLOS di 1980s ya. Dan juga dia saat ini sekarang jadi legal advisor-nya di Office of Presidents of General Assembly. Jadi General Assembly itu atau Majelis Umum itu punya presiden yang kedudukannya setara dengan sekretaris jenderal, dan dia itulah legal advisor-nya. So you can ask a lot of questions about what he does, also everything that you wanted to know. If you want to, you aspire to be a foreign relations specialist or diplomat. Makasih ya Mbak Ani atas kesempatan.
Sama-sama. Oh my gosh, makasih. Kita yang makasih. Gak apa-apa, kita bisa cut itu ya. Nanti remind me that we need to cut that, because we understand that sometimes there's like some sensitive matter that we don't want anybody else, to listen to that. So yeah, thank you so much. Atau nanti kita private, nggak apa-apa ya. So we are going to be able to send the link to everyone who are not here today. Tapi sekali lagi terima kasih banyak. Oh my gosh, ini benar-benar sudah meluangkan waktu untuk untuk adik-adik kita gitu. Semoga bisa. Ini sangat-sangat menginspirasi ya. So they're going to be able to think how to better their future career gitu, advance their career. They're still in semester berapa ya? Angkatan 2018 kalau nggak salah ya. Or 19, sorry. You're not that old. 19 ya. Oh, berguna sekali. So thank you again. I don't know what to say. Just thank you.
Ya, terima kasih sekali lagi teman-teman dan Miss Ani juga. I hope apa yang di-share bisa berguna. Ya mudah-mudahan itu aja sih saya harapannya, mudah-mudahan ngaruh. Terima kasih.
Ini ilmunya bisa diterapkan di mana-mana sih, sangat-sangat applied ya kalau public speaking itu. So you can always use that particular skill everywhere you go. Ya, apa namanya, kalau kita ingat tadi Adib bilang public speaking is life. So it's gonna be with you everywhere you go. So you're gonna bring it with you. You're gonna need it. Ya, terima kasih. Thank you again for students for attending this event today. Mohon maaf sekali lagi ini eventnya dadakan ya, because ya seperti itu ya, memang kejadiannya sangat-sangat dadakan gitu, karena Adib bilang, oh I'm going to talk at the IR gitu, jadi sekalian ya, sekalian kita culik ya, so we kidnap him successfully. Jadi kita bisa apa namanya mengadakan sharing session today. Jadi memang mendadak, dan kalau kita apa namanya tentang public speaking or communication in this case, kita kan memang harus selalu siap ya, apapun itu. So impromptu. So we need to train our skill in that area. Ya, karena kita pasti sehari-hari kita akan ketemu yang namanya impromptu ya. Kita nggak siapkan, jadi kita harus selalu siap. So especially you guys in the communication study program, you need to have that particular skill. Yeah, you need to train that skill. Jadi itu saja mungkin dari saya. Kalau ada tambahan, ada yang terakhir, kata-kata terakhir ya, kok kayaknya ngeri. Pesan terakhir mungkin dari Adib.
Kalau saya mungkin sedikit kalau boleh, I think teman-teman mesti ingat ya bahwa sebetulnya it doesn't matter whether you are punya aspirasi untuk bekerja secara global dimanapun, di Indonesia maupun di luar negeri maupun dimanapun, it doesn't matter. Tapi yang jelas yang paling penting adalah harus memberi impact gitu. Jadi karena banyak, jujur saya suka sedih gitu ya, banyak orang yang kepingin kerja di luar negeri, that's it gitu. Jadi tapi tidak tahu bahwa di Indonesia juga sebetulnya full of talented people. It's a very good environment to work as well. Tapi tergantung daripada kitanya, apakah kita bisa memberikan impact terhadap orang-orang yang di sekitar kita, terhadap diri kita sendiri gitu. Jadi don't be blindsided by the word overseas and global, tapi lebih kepada di sana kita mau ngapain kita dan kita akan berbuat apa kayak gitu. Terima kasih.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Kita kan kenal yang namanya global ya, global but local. You know, we need to promote local to the global community. Itu yang harus dibalik sebenarnya ya. Jadi masyarakat global akan mengenal kita, itu juga sangat penting. Jadi tolong digarisbawahi tadi yang dikatakan oleh Adib ya. Don't be blindsided ya. Kerja di luar negeri, terutama yang ada memang beberapa teman yang sekolah ya, nanti di-cut juga ini ya, yang sekolah terus mereka nggak mau pulang gitu ya, padahal dapat beasiswa from the Indonesian government and things like that, but we don't need to talk about that. Tapi itu juga that makes me really sad. Semoga dimanapun kita berada, dimanapun kita akan bekerja, there is one thing that we need to think about, which is giving impact to the people around us, right? So that's really important. Mungkin itu terakhir, sudah ya, kita nggak selesai ini, tambah terus. So it's already 11:30, pasti sudah jam 12.30 ya di sana ya, sudah tengah malam. Selamat beristirahat, Kak Adib. Thank you again. So see you when we see you. Ya, semoga nanti bisa ketemu lagi.
Looking forward.
Bastian, kita kembalikan ke Bastian ya.
Yes, ma'am. I want to remind you guys that We also give a certificate link and a survey. You can fulfill it on the chat Zoom chat box. So yeah, that's all for me. Thank you so much.